How do you even start a video like this? How do you formulate the introduction? I'm about to share my personal experience with racism, and this is probably the realest video of me that you've ever seen or that you are ever going to see. This is what I went through. My name is Blessing, and I live here in the Netherlands together with my husband and a beautiful little baby boy. For those of you who have seen a few of my other videos, you have heard me say sometimes that I have lived here for almost 2 decades. I know you'd naturally think, almost 2 decades, Blessing? That means you're Dutch. That's a long time. It is a long time. But I'm not Dutch. My parents are not Dutch. I'm African. And when I walk into an office, when I walk into anywhere, that's what I see. They don't see a Dutch woman. They don't see just a woman. And it is not even what I see, but it is about how you are treated based on what they see. I'm about to share my very personal experience, something that I went through right here. This is not an attack on this nation, this beautiful nation, a land of opportunities, the Netherlands. It is not an attack to white people. The protests are not an attack to a certain color of people. The protests are a call for urgent and systemic reforms. If you're watching this video and you're thinking, or you've said in your circle that racism is just between our ears, it's just what we think, it's just what we imagine. You say black people are just overreacting. I've seen those comments on social media. It's easy for you to say so because you're not in our shoes. You do not experience what we experience. You're not asked the kinds of questions that we get asked. You're not teased in the ways that we get teased. You're not worried about putting down your name on a form because you're trying to present an application that will be granted or not granted. And you're worried that they might see your name and not call you. I've had to prove myself 5 times harder, 10 times harder than an average Caucasian. I've had to work 10 times harder. I've had to push myself. I've had to prove myself harder than an average person living in the same country that I live in. We are faced with so much on every single day. No matter how subtle, no matter how harmless it may sound or seem, it touches deep down in our heart. In our soul, we feel it because of history. And of course you say, get over it. Again, it is easy for you to say that we should get over it. But history is the reason why only a certain group of people have more say about how a country is governed, how a country is run, how schools are operated, and the minorities have little or nothing to say. They are not even included in that process. This goes all the way back to when minorities are seen as inferior. That is history. And that same history is what is affecting us today. That is why we cannot easily get over it. Because even decades after slavery and racist policies were abolished, guess what? The long-lasting effects are still the reason why young black men die, or a high number of young black men still die today in police custody, and why the court system is biased and unfair to black people. These are facts. These are not assumptions. Numbers don't lie. The numbers are there. And that people go out to the streets today to protest. People are angry. People are furious. And it is understandable. If you've not walked in our shoes, you cannot really understand why. But we are here to tell you. And what we demand actually is for you to just have a little bit of empathy, a little bit of understanding of where we are coming from. And it's so heartbreaking to know that people are more angry at the lootings happening in the US than they are angry that a man was murdered in cold blood. That hurts too. Racism is everywhere. Racism comes in different shapes and forms. Don't wait till you call someone the N-word before you know that you might be a racist. And so many people out there make racist comments, act in racist manner without even realizing that it's wrong. So here is my story. This is what happened to me. Of course, I have experienced over the years different forms of racism in school, at work, and many times they seemed harmless, like I said initially. Colleagues would make racial jokes. They would tease me racially. And I know when I just started out, when I moved in here, I had to adjust to certain things that I never heard, back home, being African, living in Africa, living in the midst of people that look really like you. You don't even realize, the differences in humans. You just know that everyone actually is supposed to be equal. We are all equal. That we look different physically does not make a certain group more superior or better than another group. And of course, people are now angry that we are using the slogan, Black Lives Matter. And when I say Black Lives Matter, they are angry and they respond with the slogan, All Lives Matter. Here's my answer to you. No one ever said that all lives don't matter. That I carry a board up saying Black Lives Matter should not be interpreted as other lives don't matter. I never said it. None of those people out there protesting believe that other lives do not matter. So you stating the obvious, immediately I come forward and say Black Lives Matter, and you immediately respond with All Lives Matter. That already sends the signal that you are defensive, that you feel attacked, that you're not getting the message, that you think it's a competition. But it's not a competition. And like I said, we are not saying that other lives don't matter, but we are saying that right now, the urgency is on Black lives. We want to amplify that phrase for the focus to be on Black lives because we are burning. We are under so much pressure. We are like in trouble. We are the ones that the system should look out for the more. So you're only stating the obvious by saying all lives matter. no one is ever going to dispute the fact that all lives matter. And I've heard people say, oh, if you say that Black lives matter, then you're racist because you're already segregating. No, we are not segregating, babe. We know that all lives matter, but right now, the race that is most endangered when it comes to racial violence, racial discrimination are Black people. The numbers are there. Educate yourself. The numbers don't lie. So it is a slogan, Black lives matter. We are not saying Hispanic lives don't matter. We are not saying Caucasian lives don't matter. We are saying focus for now should be on Black lives. All lives matter, yes. But this is not the time to be defensive. You don't have a reason to be defensive at this point in time. This is not the time or the place. So immediately you're discrediting my cry. When I say Black lives matter, you're not listening. You hear me, but you're not understanding what I'm saying. You're antagonizing my feelings, my emotions, by saying all lives matter. I've seen different anecdotes explaining this. There are 10 houses on a street. One house is burning. Everyone throwing stones at that house. People in the house are dying. And people are protesting and saying, this house matters. Do something about this house. And you come forward and say, all houses matter. Come on, this is not the time and place. We know that all lives matter. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. This is what happened to me. So I had just closed from work and my husband was already home. He already finished from work. He had an early morning shift and he had gone to pick up our baby from daycare and he was already home. And I was so eager after having worked 9 hours. I was so eager to go back home to my family and just have a good evening with them. So I decided to stop by at the supermarket and get a few supplies. I had picked everything that I needed and I walked up to the counter, and when it was time to pay, this couple was standing right in front of me. Caucasian couple. To be honest, just for you to know how trivial it was that triggered his reaction, because it was the man in this situation that attacked me racially. I don't even remember exactly what transpired between myself and his wife. I didn't even have an issue with him initially. So I think they were ahead of me already. They had already put their stuff, or they were still busy actually putting their stuff. And I had two things in my hand and I was holding like the cart, one basket, yeah. So just to kind of like ease myself of the load that I was holding, I put one of my stuff just, you know, behind their stuff. And I think it didn't go down well with her. I was just doing my business. Like, I was just literally minding my business. So I just put my stuff there. And she wasn't cool with it. She felt like I should wait for her to be through with unloading her basket before I would put my things. So she kind of like moved, you know, aggressively moved my, what I had there. She moved it away. That's my stuff. You don't touch my things. Like, I don't come into your business. Don't come into my business. So I was like, what are you doing? So I kind of like readjusted it. And the husband, just what are you doing that I said? The way he attacked me already sends that message across that you have no right to talk to my wife like that. You have no right to talk back at my wife. You're inferior to my wife. So he really came and kind of like just pushed away all. It was crazy. He just threw everything and things were flying like. So I was like, what are you, you know, I was almost in shock. Like, how do you even respond? What are you doing? And, you know, the next thing that I heard was, go back to where you came from. What even warranted that? It was like pre-programmed in his head. It was almost like he couldn't wait to say those words. Go back to where you come from. I didn't know how to react immediately, but I was like, are you serious now? That was the first question I asked him. Like, are you for real? I should go back to where I come from? Where do I come from? Are you serious in 2020? I remember really asking him. I was just asking because I was in so much disbelief and shock that a grown-ass man, a grown-up man, would stand in public and tell a young black woman. This man should be in his 50s. He wasn't even a kid, a bloke. He was a man. He would tell a woman, a young black woman, to go back to where she is coming from. And I remember that it spoiled my mood so badly. I remember I felt so bad. It made me so distraught. Because when you say that to someone, not only that it is racist, it also sends that message that that person is not needed here. That person is not wanted here. That person is not welcome here. That person does not belong here. This place is not that person's place. And the reason he said that to me is because of the color of my skin. He would never have said so to another Caucasian like him. He would never have said so. He would have said something else. But the only kind of insult that he felt like he could met out to me was go back to where you come from. And I want to tell those few out there that use this phrase. You do not know the background of this phrase maybe, and you probably also did. I want to kind of like play devil's advocate here. You probably, I'm going to pretend many of you probably did not know that this is a racist statement to make. And many of you also do not know the origin of go back to where you came from. Go back to where you came from is a phrase popularized by the KKK. It has a history that goes way back to 1798. You don't know what you're doing. You don't tell anybody to go back where they came from. You don't know where they came from. And well, I come from Africa. I know where I come from. But I know people who were born here. People of Surinamese descent, whose great-grandfathers migrated to the Netherlands. They don't know anywhere else except the Netherlands. They feel like this is where they come from. They feel like this is home. And you tell such a person to go back to where they come from just because they are black. That means you're not accepting them. And it is unfortunate. So my message here today is that I demand, and I believe many black people demand with their protests, they demand justice. They demand equality. We cannot deny the fact that certain races face discrimination and disadvantages. I'm even going to go a bit further from the black race. Let's take a look at the Aboriginals in Australia and the Islander people. They are constantly faced with economic and health disadvantages. They don't have the same opportunities that the general Australian community, you know, in the wider context have. Even if they are the indigenous people of Australia. Racism is real. Whether you want to believe it or not, don't be in denial. Don't discredit my cry for change. And when I say my, I'm not speaking for myself alone as a person. I'm speaking for my race. That is why people are out there on the streets, putting their life on the line for change. Do not discredit that. And it is heartbreaking that people are saying, oh, well, he was a criminal. Oh, it's just a man that just died and we want to risk our lives by going to protest in the midst of a pandemic. It's not about one life. Besides, one life is a life too many. We don't want to lose any more lives to senseless deaths and murders by those that are supposed to protect society. There is no better time to protest. Well, after the death, we all saw the video. After that gruesome murder of George Floyd, what did you expect us to do? What do you expect? What did you expect the Black Lives Movement protesters to do? To sit back and say, well, you know what? We are living in the midst of a pandemic. We are going to wait 6 weeks or 8 weeks when the pandemic is over, hopefully, and then we're going to protest there. There is no perfect time to protest injustice. There is no perfect time to speak up against inequality and institutional racism as we are experiencing it day after day. There is no perfect time. Next month is too late. Tomorrow is too late to protest and open your mouth. Today is the time. That is why those people are out there on the streets. Racism stops today. Racism stops with you. Racism stops with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would like to ask you to share this video. Just share it to educate someone. So many people out there are ignorant. I don't think many people are out there meaning or wanting to be racist or insensitive to the cries of the minorities. I think many of them are just ignorant. So of course the next question is, what can I do? For those of you out there who are caught in the middle, you don't know how to respond to all that is going on. You don't know how to vocalize your opinions. You feel within yourself and you know that a high level of injustice is being meted out to ethnic minorities all over the world. But especially in this part of the world, in Europe, in the US. And you don't know how to, express really how you feel. You don't even know how to feel. I guess I already said it before. It starts with educating yourself. Just in order for you to start to understand what it is. What really is going on? What is this concept of racism? Really understanding this would help you develop a certain level of empathy and also respect for those people that are affected. Even if you don't know how to, how to help, how to support, how to contribute, you could share posts. So many people are out there protesting online, sharing pictures, videos, writing poems, texts. You could share this among your followers. It's going to go a long way to educate so many other people. Another thing that you can do is to intervene when you see injustices meted out to other people. When you see a situation that makes you feel some kind of way, that you know deep down inside, this is wrong. This is not the way another human should be treated just because they don't look like the perpetrator. Speak out. Intervene. When what happened to me, nobody intervened. Nobody spoke up for me. And I'm not even asking for anybody to come to my defense whatsoever. But it just tells you so much about the society that we live in. They were watching like it was a movie. Nobody really called him to order like, hey, you don't say that to a woman like that. You don't say that to a woman of color. You don't say that to anybody of color. You don't say that just because of the way she looks. That is a statement you say to someone that doesn't look like you. You don't say that. You don't insult someone based on their background, their ethnic background. No one spoke up. And I think I was already saying it, but I didn't finish that part of the story, that when I started to go to school here, when I just moved into the Netherlands, started going to school, and then when I graduated and started to work, I would be teased racially. And initially, I didn't know how to react. Like, what is this? Is this supposed to be a joke? I didn't know how to react. Sometimes I would just give a smile, a fake smile. I didn't also want to offend anybody. I didn't want them to see me like an angry person or someone who couldn't take a joke. But as time went by, and I also started to educate myself, and I started going back home feeling so down, so depressed by something someone said 7 hours ago, I knew I had to start to speak up. And I started to speak up. Initially, I would just say, no, that's not funny. And they would be laughing and, you know, teasing me. I don't want to give examples, but I would be like, that's not funny. It's not funny. I don't find it funny. And then when they see my countenance, they would go, oh, I was just kidding. No, I was just joking. No, I don't mean it that way. Of course, I was just joking. And I'll be like, whatever. Racism is real, but racism is not inborn. No one was born a racist. You know, our views and beliefs develop as we grow up, and they are influenced by, you know, our family, our friends, our schools, the things we see and read in the media, our neighborhoods. Someone who grows up in a family where racist views are expressed, or who has friends that constantly makes racial jokes, would tend to believe that, you know, these things are normal and acceptable, especially if they've not had the chance to interact with people from other cultures. So that is why we need to start to broaden our scope, start to really open our minds, let our world be bigger than the tiny little village we live in. Let us start to get engaged in dialogue, start to speak with other people that don't look anything like you. Try to understand them. Don't only listen to them, but understand them. When someone says how they feel, do not just counter-attack. That is not the time for you to say, well, that's not the way you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to generalize it. It really applies to everyone. That is not the place and the time. That is a way to discredit their emotions. And that is still the inferiority part that we are fighting against. Everyone's emotions are valid. One thing that I would like to ask of you guys before I go today, there is this petition that has been started by Amnesty United. I would like to ask each and every one of you if you really care about this, if you really care about justice. If you're a person of integrity and you believe in not only equality, but also in equity and everything that comes along with it, you want justice, I would like to ask you to go sign this petition. I see how so many people came out in support on social media on Blackout Tuesday. Everyone put out a black image. Organizations, individuals, blacks, whites, Hispanics, Caucasians, all races, so many people from all across the globe. They came together online putting out a black image. It was totally black. Blackout Tuesday, not too long ago. And I want to ask you that if you still believe in it, to go sign the petition, because it would really go a long way. I want to ask you really to share this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my other videos. Hopefully they are going to be a bit more lively than this one. Bye.